I think the phrasing on this is important. So we'll say that this is a tree which stands yet is fallen. So there's been a phrase which I've heard mostly for my entire life, and that is, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody is there to see or hear it, did it really fall? Now, what I usually glean from it is ask for forgiveness, not permission. The thing is that this brought me to questioning is if that tree is known by someone, if the tree is not known to have fallen, has it fallen? One way to think about this is, if the tree was never known, and we'll say known by people, known by intelligent creatures for now, creatures which can remember an object like that, and remember it as different from other objects of its sort. If the tree was never known before it fell, did it ever stand? This is something which draws into sophism or existential Descartism. The thing is, if you have a comfortable acceptance that you exist and that the world is how you perceive it to be, then this is totally going either over your head or under your feet. Either way, it's missing you entirely. The reason, and I think this is one of the main reasons why I like considering these questions so much, is that I don't have a solid conception of the world being how I see it to be. I am wrong a lot about my assumptions about how the world functions, and I've accepted this. So, again, it brings into sophism, and I think a sophist, if you are a sophist, you might say, no, the tree did not stand. In fact, it did not exist. It simply became an existing thing when it became relevant to me seeing it, or to you seeing it, and it was only then that it became real. There's also a more poetic view, which is, I guess I want to call it poetic sophism, which is that things can exist even if they don't have physical form. There's a lot of poems and short stories about these places which are not beyond real, though I think this poetic sophism would believe those to be at least sort of real as well. But you get these stories about, here's one, a radio show. Garrison Keillor, he's the guy who runs it, and he's the guy who creates the story of this place called Lake Wobegon, Minnesota. Now, in the story, it's just an ideal place, and poetic sophists, they would view this Lake Wobegon as existing, even if it doesn't exist physically in the realm we call real. It exists because it exists in the minds of people like me who listened to NPR at the right time as a kid. But the thing is, the tree could be, I think, in this poetic sophism, in this mindset, the tree could be both standing and fallen. Or at least if the person who knew it to be a standing tree, they knew of this tree specifically for some reason, and then it fell, it would be provable someplace in the world that this tree had fallen. But because that person does not know about it, the tree is also standing. You understand now, I hope, why I think of this as a philosophical issue? Well, the only thing that I can think of to, I don't want to say resolve, but to simplify this shouldn't be an issue, but it is issue, is that you can say the tree has stood and therefore stands. What I mean by that is, if you come across this tree, you've never seen it before, and you see it fallen, you do not have the knowledge that this tree has ever stood. But you may understand that fallen trees must have once stood. In that case, you don't have the knowledge that this tree has ever stood, but you can say, I think this is either meaningless or profound, but it's that you can say that the tree stands and is fallen. I think the phrasing on this is important. So we'll say that this is a tree which stands yet is fallen. It's puzzle, like what's black and white and red all over a newspaper. It's one of those, except it's a definition. I've recently come across something like this in my math class, which allows me to accept this a little more, which is when you just can't define a thing. You can't find X or Y or Z. So all you can do is say X equals this many Z's plus this, Y equals this many Z's plus this. I don't know what any of them are, but at least I can create a solid point of reference. And I think with some of these more blurry philosophical issues, I think I can accept that that is enough. I don't know if you can. Tell me in the comments if you have a better idea about a tree which stands and is fallen, or if you have other of these phrases which bring up weird philosophical problems for you. I'll probably talk about them, or at least I'll try to respond to your comment. Alright,